We're here with David Levesque from Andaman 7. Dave, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate you having me.
Talk a little bit about Andaman 7 and what your company's mission is.
Andaman is an island off the coast of India that's isolated in the middle of nowhere. And sometimes as a patient, you might feel like you're isolated. And your health records are certainly isolated in the healthcare system. And that's a problem all over the world. So Andaman 7 is a platform for patients to aggregate their data in an app on their phone and give them control over it. And we're here at DPharm today because we find that in medical device and pharmaceutical research, they could really use this data that the patients can provide. And so the patients can be the hub of that data and make it a faster way to do research at lower costs and really be patient-centered.
That's awesome. And you and I have talked at length about sort of some of the challenges that our industry faces in terms of adoption, and we've compared it a little bit to like the banking and finance industry, where it seems to be a little bit easier for them to adopt, even though they have just as much or close to as much regulatory concerns as we do in the clinical research industry.
Right.
Why is there such a difference?
Right. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. A lot of people ask me that. I think the simple answer is, in banking, it's funny, I'm staying here at Airbnb, and the guy I'm staying with is in software for a banking company, so I had this conversation with him last night. So in banking, you need kind of three pieces of information: who the person is, where you want to move the money to and from, and how much money, and there's kind of like one variable, that's the money, right? In healthcare, we have who you are, where you want to move the data, and then with the data, there's hundreds of variables. So there's your blood pressure, the weight, the gender, all these variables, right? And so when we built the software to house those variables, we didn't necessarily take into account interoperability when we built that software. So blood pressure in one system might be labeled as BP, and it might be blood pressure, the words, in another system. So to get those two computers to talk to each other, it's a really big challenge. So that's the technical side of it. Mm-hmm. And on the business side, it's not the hospital's fault necessarily that they didn't think of interoperability when they put it in. It wasn't part of their business goal necessarily to be interoperable. And so now we're seeing, through Meaningful Use 3, funded by the federal government, interoperability to be part of what the hospitals are responsible for, making their data available via FHIR APIs so that we can have better research and better care faster.
And I'm adding a quick question on back to Andaman 7. What is it about your service that really enhances the patient experience in healthcare and clinical research, et cetera?
Yeah, so in 2007, my boss, Vincent, and his son both had cancer. And if you've been a patient in the healthcare system, especially with a serious disease like that, and you realize that one doctor has this piece of data and the other doctor has that piece of data, and they're not always talking to each other, it's a pain. It's frustrating. It's a pain for researchers also. So what's unique about Andaman 7 is we start with the fact that the patient is legally allowed to have their record and give them a tool so they can have it, right? So to really be the hub of the record. Mm-hmm. So other clinical trials tools or tools in software don't necessarily do that. They're solving different problems. And so what's unique is that we give the patient their whole health record and really put them in the center through that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And this conference is certainly headlined around patient data ownership. I know that's kind of important to you, especially. What does patient data ownership mean to you?
It's a great question. It means that you have access and control of your own health data. So it's not just in a portal somewhere, but actually on your phone so you can see it easily and also choose to share it with your wife or your mother-in-law, whoever might be caring for you, a doctor, a nurse, somebody else that might be caring for you. And so it just makes the whole experience of getting healthcare easier and less frictionless or less stressful because you have the right information at the right time to make the right decision.